welcome to another episode of Mr. Kitty Codes. Today we're going to do a game called Cat and Toy. So why don't we go ahead and look at the overview for this game. So in the overview, we actually have a player down at the bottom that you can move left and right. There's a cat that's going to be somewhere on the screen. And when you click the mouse, you're going to throw the toy. It's going to animate going up towards the cat, and if the cat catches it, then it's going to move to another place on the screen. So that's the overview of the game. And you might think to yourself, well, that's pretty easy to do. Or you might be, where it's like, wow, there's a lot there. I'm not really sure what to do or how to start. And that's always good, because we want to keep doing what we've talked about, is that when you have a large problem like this, you really want to break it down into as small steps as you can. So why don't we go ahead and start? So the first part, we have the player. Let's just going to get the player on the screen. So we're going to use the P5JS editor again. And for this one, we just need to start by doing a rect. So why don't we do a rect? And let's get it near the bottom of the screen. So our screen is 400, so maybe 380. Actually, let's put it in the middle here. So 200, and then 380, and then width, let's do 50, and height 10. Let's see, what does that look like? There we go. All right, we might actually want to make it just a little bit bigger, thicker. So I'll make it 20 height. And then since we made it bigger, let's put it a little higher. So maybe 370. There we go. And again, if you don't like it where it is, you can just go through and adjust it. All right, and we're going to add comments to this one too. So here we go. This is the player. And the comments are just 2 slashes and then anything after it. And the program will just ignore everything after the 2 slashes. This is helpful so you can remember which thing is the player, which thing is the cat, and which thing is the toy, and what you're actually trying to do with it. All right, so we've got the player on the screen. So why don't we go ahead and go to the next one. And here, now we actually we want the player to move left and right. So to move left and right, we actually want to use the mouse, and left and right is the X. So it turns out this is really easy to do. The processing has actually come up with a variable for you called mouseX. So all you actually have to do is to put mouseX in here, and then as you actually move your mouse, it's now going to track your mouse and move and draw the player there. So it's very easy to get this to move left and right. All right, next up, let's move towards getting the toy on the screen. So let's do the toy here. So toy, and then let's do an ellipse, and let's put it in the middle of the screen, 200, and near the bottom, maybe 350, and why don't we make it 5 by 5? We'll do a small one this time. All right, there's the toy. Actually, we can make it a little bit bigger so we can see it better. 10 by 10. Excellent. So we've got the toy on the screen. Next part is we're going to animate it up. So in this time, previous ones where we actually did an animation, we only did one down. But for the toy, we actually want it to be both the X and the Y, because eventually we're going to have the toy start from any spot on the screen. So to keep track of the toy, we're going to use 2 new variables. So let's go ahead and do variable 1 will be toy X. And let's just start it off, we'll just use the values that we have down here. So we'll do 200, and then var toy y equals 350. And then we can actually just use, instead of drawing here, we just draw toy x, and then toy y. So this allows us to just draw it on the screen, and you can see it's still in the same spot. Now to animate it up, to have it go up, this is the y-axis, because remember, y goes up and down. And to go up, it means it's going to be decreasing. So we'll actually need to subtract from y. So we'll just do toy y equals toy y minus, let's do 6. All right, so now we have the toy animating up. Next up, the mouse button throws the toy. So in this one, we actually don't need to have the toy loop around like we did for some others. It's actually fine just to keep going up and up and up. But now we actually want it to start when you click the mouse. So this is a new function for us. So this function is called function, and it's called mousePressed. So this gets called anytime you press the mouse. So remember, we have three functions right now that we're using. One, which is setup, which gets called right at the beginning once, and that sets the size of our screen. Draw, and this is basically where we actually are drawing all of our code. And mousePressed, which is actually going to, where you're going to use to start off the toy. Now, how do we do this? We actually have where the toy is, right? So we have toy X and we have toy Y. So if we just started them so they always start at the bottom of the screen, we could just do the same ones we had before, 200 and 350. So if we did that, it's just always going to, anytime we click the mouse button, it's just going to start there. But we really want it to start where? Where the player is. So all we have to do that is we actually just use the player X is here and the player Y is here. So we're just going to use those directly. So we're just going to put in here mouseX and then here 370. So now anytime we click, it's actually going to be right where the player is. All right. So you can see it starting off, and you can click rapidly, but we only have one toy that's going to be on the screen right now. All right, next up. So we got that step done. Next up is to get a cat on the screen. So let's go ahead and draw the cat. So we're going to comment here for cat. And then for the cat, why don't we actually do a rectangle, and let's just put it in the middle of the screen, 200 by 200, and we'll make the cat 75 by 75. Why don't I actually make it just a little higher on the screen so it looks a little bit better at start. There we go. We can even push it just a little bit to the right so it doesn't actually get hit by the toy the very first time. All right, so we've got the cat on the screen. So the next step is having it always move. So this one is going to be a little wacky. To move the cat, we actually need to be able to have variables for where we draw the cat. So let's go ahead and go up here and create two new variables. So we do var to declare the variable. We have cat x equals, and we can start it off at the same two numbers we had here, 300, then var cat y equals 100. So we have two new variables for the cat. So now we can use those to draw our cat. So we use cat x and then cat y. Let's make sure it shows up in the same spot. It does. Now what we're going to do here is, this isn't what we want it to actually happen, but eventually we want the cat, when it gets hit, to move. So we're doing the second part of that right now, is just to move. So to do this, we can actually just do a set the value of cat x, and we want a random value. So we can use, there's a function called random, which gives us a random number between 0 and whatever you put in here. So why don't we put 325 for the x. So this actually will now starting to flash all around on this side. And then we do the same thing for the y, which would give us, why don't we not do the whole screen, but maybe just the top part of the screen. So we can do 250. So this is actually giving us now a random value anywhere on here. All right. So now we only want to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in here so it stops flashing. All right, so let's look at the next part of this. We've got the cat on the screen and it always moves, but we really don't want it to always move. So what we want now is, we only want the cat to move if the toy is anywhere to the right of the cat. So we're going to use our if statement, and all we did was put the part that actually moves the cat inside, and now we need to put this part in here to figure out how do we check that. So the two things we want to compare the toy and the cat. And so what we're actually looking is that the toys, since this is left and right, the toy's x is actually greater than the cat's x. So now we have this function here. So anytime the toy is greater than the cat's x, it should move. Now, so if I click down here, it won't move. But if I click to the right, it should start bouncing around the screen. And the reason it does it is because the position of the toy is way to the right. So if I move it to the left, it will stop somewhere to the right of it. And I can get it to move again, and you can stop. So when you're doing your own, you want to check to see, like, does this actually work? If you're clicking on this side, it doesn't hit. And you click anywhere on here, and it will immediately move. So that gets us for anywhere over to this. And really, we're just trying to get this part. So we're going to do the second aspect of it, which is we only really want it to be when the toy goes between this part of the cat, right? So we have the toy is greater than the cat x. So what we actually want to do now is we want to do a second one where we do and toy x is less than cat x. And except it's not actually just the cat x, because remember the cat x is the top left part of the cat here. So we actually need we want to be less than this side of it. So to get to this side, we actually just add the width of the cat. So in this case, our cat is 75. So we can actually just do plus 75. So this means it's going to be greater than cat x, which is the left-hand side, and less than cat x plus 75. So now if we shoot to the left, nothing will happen. If we shoot to the right, nothing should happen. And if we shoot here, watch, it's going to immediately, as soon as we do it, move to some other part. So now anytime I shoot, if I'm in that region, it's going to immediately move. And this is because we've only checked to see if it's to the in-between where the cat is. And so since the ball, even this down here, is. So now we need to get the last little part. So the last little part is just getting it so that the cat only catches the toy if it's inside the cat. So the neat part about this is we're actually just going to do the same thing we just did for the x, except we're actually going to do it for the y. So we do toy y is greater than cat y, and toy y is less than cat y plus 75. So we basically just repeated the same thing, but we changed the x's to y's, and it's basically doing the same thing here. So now when we throw the toy, it should only do it when we actually... you saw one where it actually caught it twice. Just happened to be a lucky catch there. So now, anytime the cat catches the toy, it'll go to some other random part of the screen. And now we have the basics of the cat and toy game. So there are a lot of extras that you could actually do to this game. You could actually add in, a whole series of, maybe the cat would actually throw something back to you or throw the toy back. You could also add a score for every time that you actually were able to toss the toy correctly to the cat, that you get a point. You could actually even make it so that after a certain amount of time that the cat would actually move to another spot. So there's a lot of different options you can do for this. So why don't you go ahead and try your own version of the cat and toy game. And then at the end of it, try adding some extras and share it with us and see what else you have come up with. All right. Thanks, everyone.